CNN filed a lawsuit against President Pig. It was CNN's effort to reinstate the press credentials of Jim Acosta, the chief White House correspondent. And in the process, and I'm not sure what the New York Times means when they say it escalates a dispute that has highlighted the increasingly tense dynamic between President Trump and the news media. Filing a lawsuit escalates the dispute. I'm not sure what New York Times means. Shouldn't it read, an effort to reinstate the press credentials of Jim Acosta, the Trump administration CNN sued the Trump administration today, which brings into focus, now that's the same as highlighting, which is the proper response in a dispute that has highlighted the increasingly, not tense dynamic, the increasingly fascistic tendencies of the Trump administration. Why not write it like that? Now, I know what the rules are. I was in journalism for 30 years, off and on. I've written for publications, and I know that there's a difference. Oh, is there? In the printed word and the spoken word. I understand that. But when somebody dumps a plate of dog shit where your dinner should be, are you supposed to sit there and say, this doesn't look very appealing? Could I have something different? Or are you supposed to say, what the fuck is wrong with you? This is dog shit. I'm losing it. I really am. And I admit that. I'm not going to apologize for it. But I do admit it. I do admit it. Anyway, in a lawsuit filed in federal district court, the network, CNN, argued that the removal of Mr. Acosta's White House press pass constituted a violation of his First Amendment rights to freely report on the government. I can see the argument against that, and what do I know? But the Trump administration's response will be, hey, we have a right to determine who comes into our press briefings because, after all, it might be a terrorist. CNN also alleged that the Trump bastards have violated Acosta's due process rights by revoking his credentials without a warning. Now, I don't know how it's set up at the White House for press credentials. Maybe when you sign up for press credentials, it's one of those little clauses that say the office of the White House press office can rescind these briefings if you hiccup the wrong way. I don't know. Now, Michael Grinbaum at the New York Times, listen to this and tell me if you think this is a fair way to put it. Mr. Acosta, who has clashed with Mr. Trump on several occasions. Acosta hasn't clashed with Trump. Trump has tried to belittle and denigrate Acosta. So right there. Mr. Acosta, who has clashed with Trump on several occasions, angered the president at a formal news conference last week with questions about immigration and the special counsel's investigation. The CNN correspondent would not relinquish the microphone after Mr. Trump attempted to move on to another reporter. No, after Trump denigrated Acosta, refused to answer the question, like he always does, unless it's with a lie, and didn't try to move on to another reporter, because he hates all reporters. He tried to diminish Acosta's presence and the power of Acosta's question by treating him like dirt under his toenails. Hours later, the press secretary, Sarah Sanders, announced that the administration would remove Acosta's credentials, which allowed him access to the White House grounds. The administration claimed falsely, oh, well, thank you, that Mr. Acosta had placed his hands on a White House intern who had tried to take away the microphone. CNN said in a statement, quote, while the suit is specific to CNN and Acosta, this could have happened to anyone. If left unchallenged, the actions of the White House would create a dangerous, chilling effect for any journalist who covers our elected officials. Now, the article goes on, and here in a second, I'm going to share with you the part that really pisses me off at the New York Times. In her comments, Sanders made no mention of her original claim that Acosta had acted inappropriately with the intern. Of course not, because she's a fucking liar. Ms. Trunchbull did write in this lawsuit, the White House cannot run an orderly and fair press conference when a reporter acts this way, which is neither appropriate nor professional. Now, here comes a sentence that almost makes me cancel my New York Times subscription. Mr. Acosta, who has a reputation as a showboat among some of his press corps colleagues, is not blah, 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 blah. Why put that clause in there? Mr. Acosta, who has a reputation as a showboat among some of his press corps colleagues, who the fuck cares about that subordinate clause in that sentence? The person who wrote this, Michael Grinbaum, what the fuck are you trying to do, Grinbaum? Why did you put that in there? Has a reputation as a showboat among some, what the fuck kind of a journalistic word is the word some? What does that mean? Rule fucking 20 in journalism, never use the word some. Especially not when you're referring to some of his press corps colleagues who think Jim Acosta has a reputation as a showboat. Fuck you, New York Times. That's it for me today. I've gotten too pissed off. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. You have your choice. You can listen to the ranting with the audio podcast or listen and watch me lose control with a video podcast subscription. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.